What's up, everybody? It's Saturday night, 9 o'clock p.m., and we're here. Super Bowl is this weekend, and you guys don't know it, but Super Bowl Sunday is a very special day in the life of old T-Brad, in that it is on my birthday this year, February 9th. Super pumped. How you guys feeling? Chiefs, Eagles. Joe, I know you were talking right before the show. You have no idea who it's going to be. If you had to bet, if you had to put some money on it, where are you going?
So my golden rule in playoff football is that you always pick the team that has the better quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes obviously is the better quarterback. I think that the Eagles have a better team, but I think that the Chiefs are going to find a way to get it done somehow. I don't want them to. If it was up to me, there would be a tie. I hate the city of Philadelphia with a passion. I can't stand it. I don't want to see the Chiefs three-peat. It just would be annoying. So it's like I'm all for the tie, but we all know that's not going to happen. My heart says Eagles. My head says Chiefs.
What about you, Biggs?
It's the way that I frame it is kind of like with Mike Evans. He's going to have 1,000 yards every season. You don't want to be the first guy that bets on him not having 1,000 yards in a season. You don't want to be the guy that bets on the Chiefs not winning the Super Bowl because they're going to do it. And eventually you might be correct, but I don't think it's this year. I think their team is made to do enough to win, regardless of who they're playing against. And you give Andy Reid 2 weeks to prep. You give Patrick Mahomes. The Philadelphia Eagles defense has a great defense, and defense wins championships. But it's Patrick Mahomes. It's the chefs and the refs, and this is not the Super Bowl that I bet against the Chiefs.
What you think? Let's go to the legendary ball knower, the knower of all things ball. Are you with the Chiefs?
Absolutely not. So, I have just sat in deep thought about this since I realized that Josh Allen was not going to be able to get this thing done. Ever since I realized Lamar wasn't going to be able to get this thing done, Jalen Hurts is our only hope. Jalen Hurts and the Fighting Saquons are on the cusp of history. Saquon is about to punctuate one of the greatest postseasons. Well, if they win, it'll be the greatest because he has punctuated the greatest postseason in playoff football history, and that's going to lead to an Eagles win. Now, the Chiefs gave up 139 yards and 16 touches to James Cook. Now, we would all agree that James Cook is a totally different back than Saquon, right?
Yes.
So whatever magic they had, where they were just stopping the run and all that stuff. So I'm going with the Eagles, the money line. Saquon's rushing over. Sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting excited. I don't know why I'm yelling. But also, here's the deal. Eagles by 1 million.
By
1 million is a lot.
All right, so I wouldn't bet Eagles on the over of 1 million. You'll probably lose everything that you bet. Actually, you will lose. But
I apologize.
But if it did hit,
the odds have to be insane.
You would then be the second richest person on earth behind the owner of X Twitter.
But behind Jamie Pirog, who has plus 80,000 for the Browns to win 2026.
It's going to be a tough game either way. We got Mad Scientist up in there. What's up, y'all? Thanks for tuning in, partner. We got Grindberg. What's up, fellas? Thanks for tuning in, Grindberg. Brent, always there. What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in, Brent. Go Chiefs, says Grindberg. I saw a stat today. Mahomes in his career, I think it was like he's only played like 12 games actually indoors. And in those 12 indoor games, he is undefeated. Convincing.
Well, like, even if you were to, like, how many games has he lost? Like, it's like stats
know,
like this.
I'm with you. But, like,
you know what that means to me? You know what that means to me?
He's gonna play both ways.
He's due. He's due. That is hardcore analysis. He's due.
Hashtag analysis. I have a brand, Biggs, and you know that he's due is undefeated.
I know he's due. He's due. That's crack analysis. It reminds me of the stat that the top 2 home run brothers of all time are Hank Aaron and his brother, right? Like the top 2 home run, like father-dad combination of all time, Barry Bonds and his dad. Like, it's that kind of thing. Patrick Mahomes, undefeated indoors, but really, how much does he lose, period? He doesn't lose at all. They go 14-2, 14-3 every year. How many games does he lose, period?
All the games, he's never lost one inside. So of all the games that he's lost, none of them have been inside. Not that was just a random stat. Obviously there's all kinds of things like that make their way out to create narratives in the media that get people excited.
Sure.
It's going to be a good game. If you had to pick a player, that you think has an unexpectedly good outing, maybe somebody that you're taking a low line on for this game, receptions or receiving yards or rushing yards, who's the player that you're willing to bet on, you think is really going to have a good game? We'll start with you, ball knower.
Dallas Goedert. The Chiefs were the second worst team in the NFL to the tight end in fantasy points allowed this season. And so I think that this game plan, Trent McDuffie's going to be, they play a ton of press man coverage, and as good as their corners are in press man, I don't think that their linebackers are as good in pass coverage. And so that led to them getting roasted by the tight end whenever they played man. So if there was somebody unexpected to have a big game, it is Dallas Goedert, who shows up all over like the am I good tight end spectrum, like the hot crazy matrix. And like he could just be anywhere at any point in time, and you don't know. But I think this time he's going to show up in the unicorn category, and big game, Dallas Goedert.
So what do you know what his line is? I was trying to look it up.
Let me see. I
bet you it's below 40.
Receiving yards, let's see. They have his over under at 52.5.
Dallas Goedert is at 52.5.
Yep.
What about receptions?
Receptions over under 4.5.
I want the over on 4.5.
Yep.
He's tied with AJ Brown for targets for them in the postseason as well. He's actually leading their team in receiving. So he's got 15 receptions, 188 yards, and a TD. Obviously, they haven't been throwing the ball a ton, but him and AJ Brown have been the top 2 target getters. I think what's interesting, what you said about them playing a lot of press coverage, AJ Brown's one of the best in the business at handling press as well. McDuffie's a beast, but I don't know if they can contain it. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Eagles scheme this up, because I don't know. That offense is just unreal.
So that sounds like McDuffie schemes up AJ Brown, but that leaves Goedert open.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna try to. I think Goddard's gonna have a game. That was my number one take as far as on the betting slip this week. They're gonna try to use Saquon. They're gonna. And then I think we're going to see a little bit of play action there. And on play action, with that secondary, I think Goedert sees more of the mid-range underneath targets as Jalen Hurts is trying to get rid of it. The Chiefs have a decent pass rush, so he's going to have to, and he's more likely to throw underneath in those situations, as we've seen. Jalen Hurts is not one to just chunk it downfield. He's not a Josh Allen in that. He tries to play it a little bit safe, or he runs. So yeah, what about you, Biggs? What's a player you're targeting as far as the lines go?
So I've been looking at the MVP lines, and we're talking about like plus 8,000 on specific defensive players, and it tends to be either the quarterback or some kind of like defensive marvel. I'm looking at like Reed Blankenship, Zach Bond having a pick six to like be the game winner, throwing $1 on that and getting plus 8,000. Zach Goddard is another good play. So I mean, we're talking like we're betting in the $20 range and looking at like, you know, plus $1,000 coming back to you.
You're taking one of the exciting ones to win the Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, you got to take a chance because everybody is going to be like Mahomes is plus 105 for MVP. Like, of course, Patrick Mahomes is probably going to win the MVP, but is that where you want your money going? No, you want your money going on the hard line, and let's go Reed Blankenship. Let's go Zach Bond. Let's go something crazy.
So the crazy thing is, like, we've seen it. We've seen that narrative, you know. And Joe, I know you're a Steelers fan. You've seen the narrative. You've seen a James Harrison,
Malcolm Brown
take a pick six to the hizzy to lock in a Super Bowl run. You know, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So I mean, like, what beyond that? Like, how big of a game does a Zach Bond or Reed Blankenship have to even be in the consideration? Even if, let's say Saquon has a menial game, he gets 75 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts throws one touchdown, you know, and 150 yards, you know, they win. It's a defensive battle. Like, I still don't know that. I don't know. You know, it's like one of those, it's kind of like the MVP races, you know, in actual NFL, like it's such a quarterback award, or, you know, in that Super Bowl that James Harrison ran it back, I think actually San Antonio Holmes got MVP for that Super Bowl.
Well, yeah.
Well, let me just jump in before Joe goes. Malcolm Brown of the Dallas Cowboys got the MVP in the Super Bowl and turned it into like a $20 million contract.
You mean Larry Brown?
Larry Brown. Sorry. Yeah. Larry Brown. Against the Steelers.
No, it wasn't Larry. No, was it Larry?
It was a Brown. His name was Brown. He played for the Cowboys.
You're right. I know who you're talking about.
He made money.
But I mean,
that's the kind of thing that, like, I'll throw $1 on.
Who's the last Super Bowl MVP? Von Miller? Was that the last defensive Super Bowl MVP?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and then before that, you had Malcolm Smith for Seattle. He had an interception for a TD, fumble recovery, 10 tackles. Let's see.
I was looking for
Larry Brown is the 2 interceptions for the Cowboys that you're talking about, 94.
Yeah.
Mr. Old. Right place, right time. He got yeah, that dude was terrible.
He was terrible, and he got a $20 million contract.
He ruined my childhood, tricking me into being a Cowboys fan first.
That's all. What about you, Joe? What's a line that you're taking this week?
The one that pops out to me is like super easy money is Xavier Worthy. His over-under for rushing yards is 6.5. He's probably going to see a couple of carries. Like, he usually gets them in the first quarter of games. The way that Philly's defense stacks up, I don't see really Pacheco doing a whole lot. I don't see, like, Kareem Hunt could have some chunk to it, but I don't really see anything there. But I think, like, they're going to try to find ways to get Xavier Worthy the ball. Him and Kelsey have really been the focal points for the offense. Kelsey really just in that divisional round game, he was pretty quiet against Buffalo. I could see the Eagles trying to hone in on him. That being said, tight ends have been tearing the Eagles up in the playoffs. Zach Ertz pretty much got fed the ball every time that the Commanders had the ball a couple weeks ago. But that Xavier Worthy over seems like a good one. The other one that pops out to me, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, like, they've been trying to get the long ball with him. So I could see him, like, I think, like, they said that, like, his longest completion is, like, the over-under on that's, like, 18 yards. He has, like, 8 or 9 targets where they've been trying to make that happen. This could be the game that happens. Otherwise, like, to me, it's, like, go after bet on Saquon. Like, I know that stuff's there, but like, dude's averaging 157 yards a game. Like, I hate betting on props because I feel like I'm so bad on it. So it's like, why not just do the thing that is easiest? Or like pick like heads or tails in the coin toss, because then I'm like, at least it's 50-50.
It's good odds.
You know, I saw a thing that was saying probably your best bet to win was the under on the national anthem. Now, I have no idea. I never bet on things like that. You know, typically
Those are fun.
I'm a game props guy, but I hear that it's the way to go. So who knows? But you know, we're excited for the Super Bowl. I'm excited for the game. We actually, you know, we've got. I'm hoping for a high scoring game. I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot of points. I know we got two decent defenses, so it's probably going to be your standard, you know, 20 something, 30 something points per team game. But you know, I'm excited about it. So
the over under is 48.5, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I take the over.
It's so hard with Super Bowls because they tend to turn into like 20-10.
So the prop for the national anthem is 120.5 seconds. So you're just over 2 minutes.
All right, let's time this out. Oh, say
no, we're not gonna do that.
You're gonna have Grindberg.
Not that you don't have a beautiful voice, Biggs, but I watched our viewer counter, and like as soon as you started singing, it dropped like 10. So I had to.
Fair. That's fair.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's fair.
Actually, I think we gained like 4 viewers now. So Biggs, I know you have been traveling. You know, Senior Bowl. You're now down in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. You know, I want to kind of backtrack, and this is in connection with, you know, Grindberg's Sugar Sanders to the Titans.
Is that real, or is that just like speculative?
That's just Grindberg messing with Chev.
I'm sure it is, but you know, like Senior Bowl, we're excited. Like, you know, at this point in the year, like it's funny in fantasy, it's like people are sure they're okay with the Super Bowl, but there's nothing really on the line unless they're playing props or something like that. Everybody's kind of flipped to Dynasty, right? Like we want to know what's going, what moves we need to make, you know, and there's already trades happening. There's already Dynasty startups happening. I'm like, oh my God, not another league, you know, but they're going, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've been watching some of the talent. The Senior Bowl especially was a big one. What were some of the highlights, some of the things that you saw that you left going like, okay, wow, this changed my perspective, or you need to be paying attention to this person?
So, yeah, a couple weeks ago, I left the comfort of my home, flew down to Mobile, Alabama, attended the Senior Bowl practices, watched the Senior Bowl game, and then got a rental car, I'm in Baton Rouge. I'm here as media for the Super Bowl. And I've been doing a lot of scouting, and a lot of that was Senior Bowl stuff. I saw a lot at the Senior Bowl. I saw a lot of guys. Chev and I have talked about this a lot. I saw a lot of guys that didn't do much to lower their stock. Basically, they did what was expected. I saw some guys that ruined their stock. And I saw some guys that absolutely jumped off the page, did more than what I expected. And especially in Dynasty, going into your rookie drafts, there are some guys like Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end. That dude showed a whole lot at the Senior Bowl in terms of he was the one that everybody was talking about. There was not anywhere that you could go during the first 4 days of practices where people were not talking about how Elijah Arroyo was blowing minds. He didn't get a whole lot of run in Miami with Cam Ward at quarterback, but he does absolutely everything on the field. He blocks. He's athletic. He's an end zone target. He's big. Everything that you want from a tight end, and everything that you expect somebody to come into the NFL. There are two different kinds of tight ends in the NFL. There are your big slot wide receiver types, and then there are your inline tight end types. And there's not a lot of inline tight end types that break out early. And Elijah Arroyo is kind of a perfect mix of both of those, in that he can do the things that NFL coaches go, oh, okay, I want to put him in line right now. But he also has the athleticism to work out into pass routes and perform. The other couple guys that kind of blew my mind were the Iowa State kids, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. Jalen Knoll is a route runner with precision that I comped to Hunter Renfrow. So if you remember peak Hunter Renfrow, his second or third year in the league, there were some things that he was doing with his route running skills that just with his footwork, he was leaving 4 to 6 yards of separation between him and the defender. Jalen Knoll's doing that now. The other guy is Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He's 6'3", 217. That dude won everywhere on the field. So he was running short crossing routes and making linebackers fall over. He was running go routes and absolutely cooking defensive backs. He was running like boundary routes and high pointing the ball with like body twisting agility. Those two guys absolutely blew my mind. And then the last one is Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon, of all of the running backs that were there for the Senior Bowl, looked like the guy that belongs. He's 6'1", 225 plus, 233, I think was his measured weight. He's fast. We saw him in 2023 have a superior NCAA season. That kind of went down in 2024, but it's those kind of post-hype prospects that we want to look at. The guys that had an early breakout and then kind of like fell off a little bit, those tend to be the guys that absolutely profile for super NFL success. And Ollie Gordon is that dude for me. So basically Jaden Higgins, Ollie Gordon, Elijah Arroyo. I'll throw Jackson Dart in there because he didn't do anything to kind of like hurt his stock or whatever. But those are the four guys at the different positions that I was impressed by.
So BHS Cardinal 16 came in and he said, are there any quarterbacks actually worth anything in this class? So you mentioned Jackson Dart at the combine, and I know I can see Chev there is like
Chev hates it. I love Jackson Dart. Chev hates it.
So from the Senior Bowl, you were impressed with what you saw from Dart.
No. That's not what I said. What I said was Jackson Dart did what I expected him to do. There was nothing impressive. It was just status quo. He looked like the one quarterback that was there that was NFL ready and could do the things that an NFL quarterback needed to do. Everybody else was kind of like, Dylan Gabriel threw a good ball, but he was too short. This other guy, Tyler Shuck, he was good. Everybody else had they had a good or bad week, but Jackson Dart was like, he stepped in there, he had the week he was supposed to have, and that was it.
Yeah, my guy out of Memphis, Seth Hennigan, even had him a little weak at the Senior Bowl.
Well, no, he had a great Saturday. He was absolutely terrible the 3 days of practice. I had him in my notes as the worst quarterback there.
Love it.
He texted me and was like, Seth Hennigan sucks. And he didn't even say his name right. He was like, Seth Hannamaker. Like, just completely butchered his name. Like, went out of his way to text me. I was like, hey, how's the quarterback from Memphis look? Striped helmet. He was like, Seth Hannamaker sucks. And I was like,
he was terrible. And then Saturday, like during the game, like that final drive, he was just like ... game winner.
Memphis, we perform when the lights come on, bud.
We talk about practice.
Lights came on, but throughout the week, like he was terrible. Jackson Dart was like he was fine during the game. He was fine during the week. There are other reasons why he is my QB1 of this 2025 class. Yeah.
Chev looks like he's about to explode.
Chev hears this almost every day. He knows what's coming.
You know, Chev, not that I'm with you, Biggs, but this is probably, and I kind of side with BHS Cardinals. I think it's a valid question. Are there any quarterbacks worth anything in this class? Like, this is not a class where I'm going like I'm psyched to try to draft this guy. Like, I really want to get this guy out of the draft. Like, if I have the 1-1, this is who I'm looking for. Or even if I have the 1-3, like, this is who I'm trying to get. I don't know if there are any franchise guys, but like you look at a Jackson Dart, right? Like, if you put Jackson Dart in Tennessee and him and Will Levis battle out for the starting quarterback position, I think Jackson Dart will take it.
Man, that is like the battle of mid. Like, so heavy.
But that's what we had. I mean, you get that. Like, we had that in the Raiders this year. And I know you hate that, Biggs, but, the Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, it's like the battle of mid. Like, they're both mid, even though we hope for greatness. Like, we hoped Gardner with the stash and his air raid background could come in and do it. AOC had sparks where we were like, okay, he could be the sleeper that we all wanted him to be, but we get mid, right? And so, obviously, Chev, you might have a different opinion. Is there somebody in this class that you're like, I'm not leaving the draft without this quarterback? Like, this is the guy that I want, that I think's worth it.
So to answer your question, no, I don't think that there's a guy in this class. Like, I think that, if Michael Penix was in this class, he would be the number one quarterback. There's no quarterback from this class that would be in that top 6. Like, you could maybe argue against JJ McCarthy, but JJ McCarthy was young and he put it all on film and he's super athletic and all that other stuff. Like, any one of those top 6 quarterbacks from last year would be the number one quarterback in this class. So no. And I've gone on record as saying, like, I don't necessarily want to draft a quarterback as a Titans fan. Like, I want to draft the best player available. We were 3-14. We're not just a quarterback away. Like, let's build through talent. Like, let's follow the example of, like, Detroit, for example. Like, they go and get a bunch of talent, and then you start to fill in the gaps, and then you have a guy who can come in and be like the transmission. He doesn't have to be the engine like Joe Burrow, and you're built like, and now you've got a whole unit around the guy, so he doesn't have to do everything to win a game. So,
Eagles too.
Yeah, the Eagles too. So to answer your question, absolutely not. No. I don't think that there's. I did a thought exercise and I came up with, at best,
his brain was like,
at best, you draft Cam Ward and he's the 14th best quarterback over the next 3 years. Like, is he going to be better than Baker Mayfield? No. Is he going to be better than Bryce Young? Probably not. Is he going to be better than Trevor Lawrence? Maybe. He shows up all over the Matrix, But now he's got Liam Cohen. Like, is he going to be better than any of the top quarterbacks in the AFC? Absolutely not. Like, you're hoping that he's better than Tua.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a tough sled for this class, and that's why, as a Titans fan, I think that there are guys that you can get that can come in and compete for that role in the third round. Like, you might grab Quinn Ewers. I mean,
absolutely not. I have the answer. Are you ready?
Russell Wilson,
Will Howard. If you're gonna draft a guy, I want Will Howard.
Yeah, but
you get Will Howard in the second round or the third round. Develop him. Let him. I love Will Howard. Biggs is all super juiced up for Jackson Dart. I kind of feel that way about Will Howard. We don't have to get into that now, but yeah, Will Howard would be the guy if I was going to take a guy on day 2 or day 3. That's my guy.
So what's interesting is that if you look back last year when they were thinking about whether or not Shadur was going to declare, they had him in that QB 3 to 4 of the class last year. So it's interesting how the perception of the extra season has kind of killed his stock a little bit, but he also has the benefit of being in a worse QB class that pushes him up a bit. So it's I don't know. Because if you look at everything from last year, even people that I wasn't interested in, like Bo Nix, I didn't think he was going to be amounting to anything. From a fantasy perspective, he's been more than great for what you would have expected where you drafted him at. So it's if he would have declared, does that work out for him? Maybe. The one guy that I'm actually interested in though is Tyler Show from Louisville. I think that he could actually be pretty sneaky. I've liked what I've seen from him. He has some really interesting like arm angles and just ability to navigate the pocket when he plays. Louisville has some good quarterbacks in their history. So
yeah, Tyler Shuck was actually one of the guys at the Senior Bowl that he didn't do much, but we talked about that. Not losing is a form of winning, right? And so like he didn't do anything to like kind of trip those little triggers where it's like, oh, that was bad. Oh, that was bad. Like Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe had an absolutely terrible first couple of days at practice where it was like, that's not going to translate to the NFL. He's not going to be a good NFL quarterback. Tyler Shuck basically played through the practice sessions as like did exactly what he was supposed to. And he was the quarterback that, according to his practice opposition, was voted as the best, the MVP of the quarterbacks. So the way that the Senior Bowl works is they have the American team and the national team. The American team, they have all of their defensive players go against all of their offensive players through the practice sessions. And then at the end of those 3 days of practices, those defensive players will vote on who the MVP was of the offensive players. And Tyler Shuck won out of the quarterbacks. Jackson Dart was the other one. I wanted to like throw this out there because we're deep in Jackson Dart territory right now. And for those of you who play fantasy football and especially watch the Fantasy Forecast with Graham and Biggs, we have a guy over at the Undroppables, which share the Dynasty Pulse, and he's at FF Coder on Twitter, and he has a quarterback model. I don't know what the criteria is, but he comes up with a model score based on college statistics. And the very top of his model is Trevor Lawrence and then Deshaun Watson. When we think back a few years, Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, both of them coming out of Clemson, they were like, this is the best prospect since Andrew Luck. Number 3 in the score is Caleb Williams, then Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Drake May, Patrick Mahomes, and then Jackson Dart. So Jackson Dart is right there under Patrick Mahomes. He would have been the QB4 in the 2024 class behind Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. Then we have Trey Lance, Bryce Young, Dak Prescott, Hendon Hooker, J.J. McCarthy, Baker Mayfield, Dwayne Haskins, Lamar Jackson. Now, so obviously context is very important, especially with an analytical model. Landing spot is a huge thing. Who they have as the quarterbacks coach is a huge thing. Who they have to throw to is a huge thing. But as far as like what they've done in college, the fact that Jackson Dart is where he is in this model, especially the fact that he's ahead of every quarterback in the 2025 class, is huge. Another Undroppables guy, Jax Falcone, has his anatomy of a dynasty quarterback. He takes essentially the last 4 or 5 years of guys that finished as top 12 dynasty quarterbacks. He figures out what their minimal thresholds as far as their college performance is and runs that through. And we have Jackson Dart hitting every single threshold except for, I want to say, his touchdown to interception ratio and his total number of touchdowns in his best season. But he blows away the rushing yards. He's right there in size. He blows away like the college experience. All of the things that the top 12 in Dynasty as quarterbacks do, Jackson Dart is right there. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are not. And I'm not a tape guy, but I watch tape on Jackson Dart, and there are a lot of progress things that I've seen from 2022 to 2024 that really impressed me, along the lines of what I saw from 2021 to 2023, Michael Penix and Bo Nix. I think Jackson Dart has the highest upside of any of the quarterbacks in this class, and I'm letting everybody take Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and then I'm just waiting, and I'll pluck Jackson Dart.
There you go. There you have it, folks. Jackson Dart is Big's. Got to take it. Guy, really loving that. Yeah, I don't hate the Jackson Dark take. I know legendary ball donor over there is just
Hates it.
but I don't mind it. We'll obviously see, and it just goes to show. I mean, there's nobody in this class that we're just like absolutely,
I would be shocked if a QB goes at 101 in like a Dynasty Superflex this year.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
Brent popped it in. He said, "Who is the best running back in this class? It feels like the NFL is ready for the next class." That's a good. I mean, killer thought. And like last year was wide receiver heavy, and we got some killer wide receivers out. It reminds me of like the CD class, right? Like, we got Lab, we got Brian Thomas Jr., we got Malik Neighbors. Like, we got so many people that just like boomed,
McMillan.
Yeah, McMillan. But even like you got the Malik.
You didn't even say Marvin Harrison Jr., which is just crazy to think about all the hype going into last year for him, and you didn't even list him in your top 5.
I know, but even like he was
or Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, with rookies, you always hope for more, but we haven't had rookies like both Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors both finished inside of the top 10 PPR fantasy points this season at the position as rookies. That typically doesn't happen. You got McConkey finishing, I think, right inside the top 15 or right at 15, somewhere right around there. And but we saw, you look at CD's rookie season, you're looking at, or like T. Higgins rookie season, you're looking at 800 yards, something like that. And we saw 1,200 yards from Brian Thomas Jr., almost 1,300, and a lot of that came from Mac Jones. So it didn't even matter like who was at quarterback. It wasn't because he was with T. Law and an excellent system. Like, he just made plays. And so, we saw a really heavy wide receiver class with not a ton to offer at running backs, but we got a couple gems in there, right? But this class seems to be the other way around. It seems to be stacked at the running back position, which is not traditional. And, like Brett said, it does feel like we're kind of hitting that turning of the tide, or we have a lot of like aged guys that may be on their way out, and not completely on their way out, but, you got Aaron Jones, you got Derrick Henry, you got, all these people that are playing like in their 30s, and so needless kind of all that to say, who's the best running back in the class? And Joe, you start us off. Who's your number one guy, like the best? And I know obviously there's a lot of people are going to go automatically to the Heisman candidate who played at Boise, who played really incredible defenses, but like who's the guy you're just absolutely jacked on for this season?
Ashton is that guy. So it's like we don't need to make it more complicated than it is. Like, he is the best player in the class. He's gonna be 101 this year in the drafts. Like, that is what it is. I said this like a month or so ago, but Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina is somebody that I'm extremely excited about. I really like the profile that he has. But yeah, I think those guys are already top 2, so it's not really saying a ton. Somebody that's going to be like a later round option that I've been kind of kicking around quite a bit is Dylan Sampson. He was a running back for Tennessee. I really liked his game as well. So I think kind of like that back half of the second round, you could see him slide there. He would be somebody that I'd be very excited to have. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes. But I'm not going to be contrarian and pretend that the dude that almost put up Barry Sanders numbers isn't the best running back in the draft.
I gotta add a little bit of shade in there a little bit. So just keep people on their heels, because there is that always like, right, we always want to just go with the trend, and like, part of our thing is we want to get people to look at it, right? Like, look at the stats, look at the scores. One of the great things about the Senior Bowl, or like being at the game, is like you get to experience a little bit of what their burst really looks like. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a difference maker. You look at, back when James Robinson came into the league, like the guy had burst, right? And though he wasn't the fastest, though he didn't come from the biggest school, we saw him be effective because of how he played. Now, of course, the injury happened and his career faded, but in that rookie year, you got to see that, right? And so I always want to push people because not everybody's got the 1-1. Not everybody's got the 1-3, right? And so we know those guys are going to be gone. We know he's going to be gone. Like it's going to happen no matter what. So, who are some of those other guys? Who are you really excited about? So I'm going to flip it over to you, legendary ball knower, my guy. Obviously you were shaking your head at a lot of the names that Joe was saying. And, Biggs has already, proclaimed some Ollie Gordon excitement there. Who are you really excited about in this running back class?
So there's a few guys. If you're just kind of tapping into Dynasty or the draft process, you may not be familiar with some of these guys if you didn't really watch college football that much. Devin Neal is one of my favorites in this class. Just consummate professional running back, no wasted motion. He came in at the Senior Bowl bigger than what he was listed at, much like Elijah Arroyo. Like he was listed at 215. He comes in at 5'10", 220 pounds. That was really exciting. RJ Harvey, who passive aggressively threatened Biggs on Twitter just by liking a tweet. He's another guy that's absolutely electrifying. And then my personal favorite is Brashard Smith from SMU, the converted Miami wide receiver. He transferred. So 3 years in Miami, 700 yards receiving, 70 catches over the course of time. Dynamic kick returner. Transfers to SMU this year. Plays running back for the first year. And so we're working on a draft guide. Spoiler alert. We're going to have a draft guide for you guys that may or may not know. Like when I watched this tape, that was the only running back where I saw where it was just like, what's he about to do next? What's about to happen? He made me stand up, sit up in my chair and be like, what's he going to do next? Give him the ball again. What's he going to do next? And I'm hoping that he does really, really poorly at the combine so we can get like a Bucky Irving type discount. But he was so electrifying at SMU this year. You saw it in the ACC championship where they crawled back into the game because they were just like, hey, Brashard, just carry us to the promised land. And he almost did, had that kicker not had like the leg of prime Sebastian Janikowski and hit like a 58-yarder.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So, yeah, Brashard Smith is my personal favorite running back in this class. And, I mean, that's just because, I watched this film and I'm probably going to watch it again and take more notes to see if there's some reason I can talk myself out of him being one of my favorite guys. But, yeah, so Devin Neal, RJ Harvey, Brashard Smith, those are some names that are kind of off the beaten path. I've been doing mock drafts so we can kind of get pre-Senior Bowl, post-Senior Bowl ADP going for rookie mock drafts. And those are guys that are consistently available. Well, RJ Harvey and Brashard Smith are available in the third round of your rookie drafts right now.
Devin Neal had 3 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards, which is not common in college football. I have Ollie Gordon over him right now, but I mean it's hard to do that. The RJ Harvey story is pretty funny. The Senior Bowl measurements came out and he was like 5'7", and so I posted to Chev a picture of a toddler getting a football bounced off his helmet, and RJ Harvey liked it, and I went, oh no. Oh, no. So a couple times there was a lot of access to the players, and so a couple times I went up to him and I was like, I'm so sorry. You're just short.
That's so tough.
You're short.
Yeah, we both I was like, oh no. I hope that you don't have to see this person in person. But
he was very cool. He was very nice with me. And Devin Neal was a great interview too. That dude is not short on confidence. One of the things that there were a couple of dogs that I got a chance to talk to. Jack Besh from TCU, the wide receiver, and Devin Neal.
Dog.
When you talk to those guys, and like Devin Neal was like, I asked him about the fact that he may not be at the top of the narrative, and he's like, that doesn't matter to me. I know that I'm that dude. I had 3 straight seasons of 1,000 yards, blah, blah, blah. And then Jack Besh was like, there's a Jack Besh quote where he said, they call it a 50-50 ball. I call it a 75-25 ball because I'm getting it. And, and then one of the offensive linemen, he was like, somebody asked him about how he felt getting beat in the Oklahoma drills, and he was like, everybody gets got. And it was like, oh shit, okay. To have that mindset where like you're going to lose some reps, that's going to happen, but that the next rep you're going to win it, is like, that's so huge. So like there were a bunch of people I got a chance to talk to that were absolute like monsters, and it was fun.
On the flip side of this, we're talking about all of these running backs and how there's like this powerful running back class. Thinking about like, all right, like who is going to be impacted most? I think a lot about like players who had like a good season this year that I'm probably going to try to sell high on going into next year, like Tyrone Tracy, Chase Brown, like dudes that didn't have like a lot of draft capital. For whatever reason, draft capital plays a lot bigger role for running backs. Like with wide receivers, you have so many on the field that it's like, all right, like 5th round receiver kind of pops off, like they can kind of keep their opportunity and make things happen. But these guys that we're talking about, that we're excited about, they have to go somewhere and they have to replace someone. So it's tricky.
Yeah, and it's Damian Pierce all over again. And you mentioned James Robinson. It's the James Robinson effect. And this running back class is legitimately 20 deep. In your dynasty rookie drafts, it's going to be basically like kind of a combat fishing scrum for some of the early wide receivers. Crazy. But the wide receiver, great point, Joe. Thanks, Amber. But I'm going to put out there that the wide receiver class is a lot deeper than people think. There are a lot of guys who are guys in this wide receiver class that haven't gotten a lot of run over the last couple months. Jack Besh,
he made himself a lot of money at
TCU, being the leader. Yeah, that dude is a dog. That the kids from Iowa State. Everybody talks about Tet McMillan and Luther Burden, and yeah, there's a very clear consensus top 3. I'm saying like this is the year that 0 RB makes the most sense, because all of these guys who are coming out, there are running backs that have A, the physical profile, B, the production profile in college, and C, like the age coming out, that absolutely portend fantasy success, that are in like the teens in terms of like our running back ranks. This is when 0 RB makes the most sense, because those guys are going to be taking jobs. They're going to be stealing jobs from guys that we've been looking at the last couple of years. We haven't talked about Trevor Etienne at all. Trevor Etienne did some things on passing routes that it's hard to see wide receivers do. He made some catches that a lot of wide receivers don't make, and nobody really talks about him either. This class is so deep, and I think this is a new age in the NFL where, if you look at last year's draft, there were guys even like at your defense and trench positions that were being taken in the 7th round that were NFL ready. And I think that's the new age of the NFL. The turnover is going to start to get so incredible. And I don't know the word I'm looking for. Basically, you have a lot of guys coming in out of the college ranks because they came in 2020 and they're 5th-year seniors now. There's a lot of talent, and it's at every level, and it's through all 7 rounds of the draft, and it's at every position. And running back is especially that one this year. There's legitimately 20 running backs that could start tomorrow for an NFL team.
So I'm gonna hop over. Well, Amber said our 2nd round picks carrying as much weight as they did last year for rookie drafts. I think so. This class is so deep and there's so much talent. And I feel like there's such a drop off in like need with people like going. I mean, you look at the Bills, like Mac Hollins is on his way out. Like they got Shakir. Keon Coleman was okay, but we didn't get what we wanted. There's opportunity. There's opportunity for the Raiders. There's so much opportunity for players to come in and be like relevant year one, because there are holes that need to be filled on teams. You know, we saw Tim Patrick, you know, rise to relevance last season, which means he's on his way. Like Lions could need somebody, you know, Denver needs people. Like there's just so much opportunity out there. So I think, you know, like last year where we saw some of these wide receivers come in and take immediate impact roles, we could see that again. And especially I think in the running back room as teams start to churn and look for what's next, right? And so I'm going to flip over. As you guys know, this show is brought to you by the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, the social media platform for fantasy sports. And we always, during the show, go over when we take a question live from one of the people over on the site. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to pop over. And this one's from Geezer.
Oh, Geezer.
Geezer's a good member. He's been around, and we love having him on there. He says, I have a question for y'all. How are you seeing the running back value coming this year? Are you prioritizing getting one of the top guys in the first round or taking a wide receiver first and getting a lower tiered running back later? If you're drafting him at the front end of the round, will you prioritize Bijan, Saquon, Jameer, you know, over Chase and JJ? Or, you know, so on and so on. And so really it's getting at the idea of I am a hero running back style player. I like to get a stud early, like somebody that I know I can pretty much count on all season, right? That's typically my style. But, you know, occasionally if one of my guys that I want is not there, like let's say, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the running backs go, and like, you know, in my draft rankings, the next person I want isn't until round 3, then I punt and go wide receiver heavy. But, you know, like, is it worth this year, or like with the running back position, you know, Biggs, I know you mentioned you may go 0 RB and take running backs later. But are there guys, like if you have the 1 through 5 and you can get like a Bijan, Saquon, a CMC, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs, like are we trying to land one of those running backs in round 1? Or are we doing the 0 RB thing?
It depends on draft spot. If I can get Saquon or Derrick Henry, I'm doing that. Other than those two guys, if those two guys are gone by the time it gets to me, I am just loading up on wide receivers for probably the first at least 3 rounds, maybe 4 or 5. I'm also a fan of the anchor RB style. The problem is when you come into a situation where like CMC is the consensus 101.
Well, this year he may be like 105 to 106.
Sure.
I think he's going to drop a lot more than you think.
But we see how that works out, and I'm always one that goes against consensus just because I'm kind of like that. So when consensus is CMC is the RB1, there's a Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1, and there's a quarterback at QB1. I'd rather take the value at somebody who has a chance to put up the same numbers as that person, but get them later and also add on. So let consensus take what consensus takes. The environment for Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Bijan Robinson next year is going to be it might be a little bit too rich for me, and I'm going to revert to 0 RB because running back is one of those positions where you look at who flashed in the second half of the season. And obviously Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those guys, but Jahmyr Gibbs, his numbers at the end of the season were affected by David Montgomery's injury. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's literally the foundation of one of my nicknames, but he wouldn't have had the season that he had if David Montgomery didn't get hurt. So are we banking on David Montgomery getting hurt again? Maybe. But yeah, running back is a churning position that turns out to be you can have somebody and they will flash in the second half of the season where you thought that they were going to do well in the first half of the season. Joe Mixon did great, but there were guys that you wanted to own in weeks 10 to 18, 17, 16, whatever your playoffs are, that did more for you.
Yeah. MA football guy tuning in. Give me some hey Tyler, man. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in tonight. We're gonna keep rocking this though. Justin, what's your thoughts on it? Like I know he said if it's not Saquon or Derrick Henry, not really interested in the first round. Are there any running backs for you that you're like, if they're there in the first round, this is where I'm going, or are you punting it this season?
So first things first, running back injury regression is about to hit like Mike Tyson in the 80s. So I
not
have
in the
to,
2020s though.
Yeah, I have to the first thing that I have to do is say, all right, cool. Like I have to be okay with the fact that like if I draft one of these guys, we could be committing ourselves to like 13 games. Before this year, the quintessential James Conner season. Running backs are going to be so pumped up in ADP going into 2025 that I think the plus EV move most likely, if you're not going to get a guy who's got a top tier O line like Saquon or Derrick Henry or Bijan, like that's kind of the big three for me. Derrick Henry doesn't catch passes, so he ends up at like third, and now Saquon doesn't catch passes as much. So if I can't get Bijan, like I would be okay with punting running back and just taking the safe and secure volume of a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson, or Puka with no, Puka, CD, Puka with no Cooper Kupp anymore, CD, bounce back year. I mean, he's wide receiver 5, and that's a down year for him. So, yeah, I would love to, if I can't get a guy who's guaranteed volume, obviously you can't assume that they're going to get injured, but we know that it's probably going to happen because everybody stayed way too healthy, and that's just the way that this goes. It's a cyclical thing. Like last year, everybody was going 0 RB. Josh Jacobs was going around the same range as like T. Higgins and Tank Dell, like in best ball drafts. I think that this year, running back's going to be way pumped up. The value is going to be on receiver. So that's where I kind of lean if I can't get a true workhorse / bell cow. And I'm still undecided on whether or not I'm willing to draft Christian McCaffrey this year if he's at the back of the first round or early second.
What about you, Joe? Same feels?
So I have a couple things. One, I hate locking into positional strategy going into a draft. I think that is like the worst thing that you can do from a fantasy perspective, because if 10 people take a running back in the first round and I say, well, hey, I'm taking a running back, and I'm taking the 11th best running back, and to me that's a problem. So it's like you need to zig where people are zagging and find value. I think the other thing that we kind of forget about, but it's pretty obvious, but in order to be a successful fantasy running back, you have to be on a successful team, because running backs get more tread when your team's winning games, right? So you look at the situation, like the toss-up of last year was like, who's going to be 2 or 3? Bijan, Breece Hall. And it's funny because everybody's like, oh, well, Bijan, he has like a clear handcuff. Algiers going to take carries away from him. Breece has no backup behind him. He's going to dominate, so he's your clear-cut running back 2. Well, the Jets sucked. Braden Allen came out of nowhere, and then Bijan far surpassed anything that he did. So it's like, if I'm taking a running back that early, they have to be like a playoff, like expected team for the year. If you think that team is going to have a losing record, don't touch that running back. Like, look at what Saquon did and where he struggled and why people were so bearish about him this past year. Like, it should have been obvious that, like, hey, he's going to the Eagles' best offensive line. They're going to be a playoff contender. Like, it's a smash hit, like, if you can stay healthy. But it's like, if we're going to be looking at somebody like maybe like Jonathan Taylor starts creeping up into the first round, and it's like, all right, what is going to happen with the Colts? Like when Anthony Richardson, it's like, oh, well, he's going to be that guy for them, but you're probably not getting all that out of it. So all that to say, like, it could happen. I think McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, like all those things, like pretty much Chev's top 3, like I completely agree with. I'm not worried about Gibbs getting less work. I do have concerns about what happens now that Ben Johnson's gone, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I don't like getting into like, oh, what position am I going to take round 1? I'll take the best player available. If I'm in the back half, I might be taking Brock Bowers. Like, we might not be doing receiver, running back, like anything. like.
Ooh, that's a tasty burger.
And of course, like what you want in the first round of your draft is to, like you said, zig when other people are zagging. It's all about what value is presented to you at the time. But when we're talking about running backs, one of the things to consider is how running backs fluctuate as far as their fantasy performance. So we look back to the 2023 top 5. We have guys like Rashad White, Travis Etienne. They finished in the top 5. Bijan Robinson, I had just outside of the top 5 because of the volume, but he increased the volume. They took a specific amount of carries. I think he had like 60 carries fewer in 2023 versus 2024. And Tyler Algier had 60 fewer carries in 2024. So they basically swapped that production, and Bijan found himself in the top 5. That seems to be like something that's sticky, and it's going to happen like over the course of the future. The new regime in Atlanta wants to get Bijan the ball more, and Arthur Smith wanted to split the backfield up. So you have situations where, like in Pittsburgh, it looks like Najee Harris is gone. Jaylen Warren is going to stay, probably increases volume. So you have to kind of look at that and the fluctuation in the top 5 running backs. CMC in 2023 was RB1, not even in the conversation in 2024. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint with running backs, and with wide receivers, it seems to be pretty much a season by season, more of a sticky thing to rely on. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those guys are going to be at the top regardless. There's more fluctuation at the running back position. So I'd be more inclined to rely on a wide receiver in the first round.
So, and it is an interesting take, and everybody has their own way of kind of going at it. And we're kind of wrapping up. We're getting here to the end of the show. Biggs, I'm kind of on the other side of it, and I would say that because when ADP rises on a position, like at running back, we're seeing guys that we're considering to be a first round, like your CMC, your Bijan, your Jahmyr Gibbs, your Saquon, like, your Derrick Henry. We're naming 6-7 guys, right, that are like going to be consensus round 1, which means the position is going to deflate really fast. Like really quickly, you're going to see running back runs. You're going to see people trying to get their guys, which is going to leave wide receivers there. So you may have a chance in the late first to really nab some studs. But the issue comes in that a lot of the big running backs are going to be gone. And then in the second round, people are going to be worried. And already in the second round, they're going to be grabbing James Cooks, and they're going to be grabbing, Chase Browns, and they're going to be grabbing these folks, to try to make sure that they have some semblance of a running back room where you have to play 2 positions. So, this year I would say more than ever, I'm probably going to lean into that hero RB style and just try to lock in at least one big guy, right? Like I want to lock in one guy, whether it be in round 1 or round 2. If I don't get him in round 1, maybe I'm trying to get I hope Jahmyr Gibbs slips to round 2. I doubt it's going to happen, right? Or, somebody like that. I'm going to try to get like the closest thing to the somebody that's got a fully encompassing role, right? We'll know a lot more after the draft, but when ADP is strong on a position, like you said, Justin, you kind of have to let that mold because you're really competing, right? You're trying to fill that roster. And if running back goes heavy, that means your high-end wide receivers are going to be there later. And, you may be able to get Jalen McMillan in the 6th round. You may be able to get a Brian Thomas Jr. in the 2nd, or a Ladd McConkey in the 3rd or 4th, like even like your veterans, like your Mike Evans, like you'll probably be able to get him in like the 5th round next season, 6th round next season, so like a lot of those guys are going to fall because of the running back push. But, that's just my take on it. And we're going to kind of wrap up. I don't want to leave Dad Bod hanging. He said, well, first Amber said Biggs hopes McMillan falls to the 6th.
McMillan in the 6th would be crazy, by the way.
He's probably going to be there. He didn't really.
Yeah, he should be. He should be like a 10th round guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to be there because he didn't come on till the end of the season. Everybody's going to talk about how Godwin wasn't there, and if it's going to change the dynamic of the offense and how they all interact. He'll be around that range, which is going to be a value because I think we saw and Baker's going to air the ball out. I'm a little worried about what offense might look like without the OC there. There was a reason that they were willing to make him the highest paid OC in the league. He made Baker the number 4 overall quarterback in freaking fantasy. So
we have to go. I can't. I'm not going to do it. Right
Amber
now.
just heard me pounding the desk for McMillan for week after week after week after week, and finally he hit.
You know what it was for Baker? He had to sleep in the Cleveland Browns stadium for all those weeks outside.
Probably so. But, we'll see. I'm excited. I will say this. I'm excited for Trevor Lawrence in that scheme based on Baker to be in the Browns and be okay. He took him to the playoffs, but then be passed around like a, bag of chips at a Halloween party or something. And then,
What kind of parties you go to, Tyler?
lots of chips and salsa. No, but you know what I'm saying? He gets passed around and then he lands there and he's this season, you weren't thinking Baker, but Baker put up a top 10 quarterback season, put up a top 5 quarterback season, whether we like it or not, he did. Are there
anti-Baker people here on this platform right now?
Nope.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But there was a lot of anti-Baker people coming into the beginning of last season, so that is where it traditionally sits, but obviously he showed a lot this season. So I'm excited to see, but to get to Dadbot's question before we sign off, before he gets mad at me in the chat, he said, Smith or Brown at wide receiver 1. I'm guessing this week.
It's got to be. Because he said it was for playoff fantasy stuff. So
yeah, so Smith or Brown this week? Who has the bigger week?
Brown.
It's got to be Brown. Smith has been the 3rd largest target getter behind Brown and Goddard. So it's he's kind of an afterthought in the offense. The Chiefs have been pretty locked down in the passing game. So I think that Smith is not really the guy that you want to be targeting out of those two.
The crazy thing is that going into the season, the question mark was on the Chiefs' pass defense, and they absolutely showed out. And
Spags is a monster.
Yeah,
he's a mastermind for sure. Oh, also, Chris Jones MVP, Super Bowl MVP odds are plus 6,500. If you're just interested in big, strong, future Hall of Fame defensive tackles, completely taking over games like he did at the end of the Super Bowl last year.
That's what I'm saying. Take $20, throw $1 on each of the MVPs that are just kind of crazy.
Every defensive player.
Yeah.
All right. So what a show, fellas. Thanks for tuning. Thanks for being here. Got a killer crew. Make sure you go follow these guys on all the major platforms, but more so, come to fantasysportsadvice.com and you can get access to these guys anytime you need to with your fantasy football questions. And as you know, we launched baseball and basketball this season, which is moving along. So pretty pumped about that. But again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. 9:00 Central with From the Forum. Y'all have a good week and enjoy the Super Bowl. Go
ELGLES.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com.